As I celebrate turning 50, I've been reflecting on the professional skills that have made the biggest difference in my career and in life in general. Today, I'm sharing my top 5 skills that have gotten me where I am today, whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing. If you have these skills too, not only will they propel your UX practice, but they will excel your career as well. Also, having these skills makes you a better and more interesting person. See how interesting I am? All right, be nice. I'm turning 50. Leave me a comment saying happy birthday. So let's dive into the 5 critical skills you need to succeed. I have created a little bit of a framework to help you remember my top 5 skills that you want to develop based on literally decades of experience. I'm one of those seasoned professionals. So I've been around the block a few times. I've learned a lot of lessons. And you can use my experience to accelerate your career growth. I have organized my top 5 skills in an easy framework for you to remember. A, B, C, D, E. Don't worry, you don't have to take notes on all that I'm sharing today. I have a handy little cheat sheet that you can download just by typing turning 50 in a comment. If you type in turning 50 in a comment below, I'll send you this handy little cheat sheet that covers my framework, A, B, C, D, E. So let's start with A of the framework, which is authentic. And authentic means to be real. Stop pretending you love something when you don't. Stop lying to protect someone's frail ego. Stop sugar-coating shit. Stay true to your values and your unique perspective. To be honest, I've not always made best friends by being authentic. But when people work with me, they know what they are going to get. And I'm going to be honest. Will I give you feedback packaged in a pretty bow? No. Will I give you an honest perspective that will set you in the right direction to get you on the path to success? Hell yes. In UX, this might look like advocating for ethical design practices or the best user experience, even when it's not popular. For example, calling out questionable design practices like deceptive patterns. You do this even when that awkward silence fills the room because people don't agree with you. It's not always comfortable, but somebody has to say it. This feels manipulative and yucky. I don't see how this is user-friendly. Have you ever been that bad guy that had to deliver that bad news, but you're keeping it real? I know I sure have. How about sharing your professional failures openly? Have you done this? Have you ever had a project that did not hit the mark? I can tell you about a few times for me as a researcher that I didn't get the answers that the stakeholders were hoping for. Maybe it's because what I learned actually sparked more questions. That happens. Or it could be that the research was over by the time the stakeholders started to hear nuggets of information, but it was too late to go back and ask participants for more information. There have been times where I didn't really understand the ask. I took my research in a different direction than the stakeholders anticipated. Being real about your fuck-ups makes you a more relatable person, and it causes other people to trust you more. It shows you are not superhuman or perfect. So, along those same lines, being authentic is admitting when you don't know something. Look, we do not have to pretend that we know all the things. Please stop doing this. It is annoying. If someone asks you something in a meeting, just say, "I'm not sure about that. Let me look into it." This not only buys you some time to get the answer, It also shows your ability to figure it out. And this is really a critical skill for a UX pro. Look, we do not have all the answers at our fingertips. So don't set a false precedence that you do have all the answers by lying about it. Be authentic. Also, let's talk about being authentic with your team. It's important that you tell the team what they need to hear, not necessarily what they want to hear. It's tempting to sugarcoat things, but honesty is what creates real trust and impact with your team. If a design is going to fail, or if it's going to do harm to users, you need to say the truth. It may sting a little bit now, but it's going to be better for them in the long run. Okay, so let me share a little story with you where I had to break some hard truths to a product owner, and she was not happy about it. I was working on a product that was B2B, so an internal product for professionals. And we wanted to put a referral system. We wanted to put a referral option in the system so that this user could refer the business to somebody else. Well, when I talked to participants about this concept of being able to refer business to somebody else down the road, participants were pissed. Not only did they say they would not use the feature, but they also were angry that it could be put in the system. They don't want their business to be referred to somebody else. They want those dollars from that business. So I took this data back to my product owner, and she told me, Jen, don't bring me bad news. What? Okay, maybe this was not the information we were anticipating, but it's still important data to consider. So I flat out told her that users do not want this feature. It is angering them. And she just shrugged me off like, oh, well, we're doing it anyways. No, we're not. So I took it upon myself to go above her and go to the vice president of the product and let him know what I had learned through research. It wasn't fair for this product owner to make such a false call about a product or a service. We had data to support the opposite. We had data to show that this is not what users want. And my product owner wanted to ignore it and call me names, essentially saying I was being a troublemaker. Not going to fly. So the lesson here is by being brave and being true to the user, we kind of prevented a catastrophe. Again, product owner was not happy, but I got to keep shit real. So let's talk about how being authentic is valuable even beyond your role as a UX pro. I'm a firm believer that you should bring your whole self to work or wherever you're meeting up with people. Pretending to be something you're not, it's just so exhausting. The TV personality Judge Judy has this saying. I love it. You don't need a good memory if you tell the truth. And one way to interpret that is if you are your authentic self, you don't have to try to remember the person you are pretending to be. If you show who you are from the beginning, that sets expectation. Look, if you curse like a sailor like I do, that is part of you. I'm not saying that you need to drop F-bombs in meetings. Ha. Of course, you want to use a little bit of emotional intelligence and read the room before you go drop an F-bomb, right? There's nothing wrong with sitting on the sidelines for a bit and figuring out the dynamics and the politics before you jump in. What I am saying is, if you are not the type of person who creates one of those compliment sandwiches, then do not do it. How you frame your message is very important. And honestly, a bit out of scope for this talk today, framing messages. So if you'd like me to do a video on that, leave me a comment and let me know your interest in how to frame your messaging and your communication. All I'm saying is don't bite your tongue when it matters. If someone says, does anyone have a problem with us moving forward in this way? And you do see a problem with that, say something. You know how the saying goes, speak now or forever hold your peace. And as the UX person, you have to be the voice of the user when they are not in the role to represent themselves. It's up to you to be authentic and keep shit real. Okay, so why does being real and authentic even matter? It's not just about being honest, it's about being brave enough to let your true self shape the work that you do. And the best part, when you are authentic, you inspire others to be the same. That is where the real shit happens. No more fake nice or pretending to do the right thing. Real, raw conversations get the team to reality faster. Being real is how impact happens. Okay, so let's move on to the B in the ABCDE framework. But wait. I just want to spend a little more time talking about how I am authentic. If you've ever seen any of my BlatzChatz videos or you've seen me speak at a conference, you know I'm pretty real. I will drop the F bomb if needed. I'm goofy and silly, and I do not take myself too seriously. But I'm pretty lively and animated. Something I need to work on, though, is I have a really bad poker face. If a person says something I think is kind of stupid or I don't agree with, my face reveals all. I hate this about myself. I have no poker face. Don't ever play poker with me because you're going to win. Also, I'm an authentic person because I'm not afraid to be wrong. And I admit it when there's something that I don't know. This just makes me a better researcher. I love to play that apprentice role when I'm trying to gather information. Teach me. I am here to learn from you. You know how that approach and research goes. So that's a little bit about how I am real here on BlatzChat and beyond. Now let's get on to the next skill, the B in the ABCDE framework. B is for bold. Boldness is about taking risk and stepping outside of your comfort zone. It's kind of related to being authentic because being real takes balls. You got to be brave and bold to be authentic, right? So here's how being bold plays out in user experience. Say you present a controversial idea in a design. Maybe you suggest a complete overhaul of a product's navigation. This happens sometimes like you're a new person in a company and you had some pretty awesome ideas that you could do to improve the product based on where you worked previously. It happens. And this can be a pretty bold move at some companies. Remember that story I shared with you about how users did not want that referral feature in the system? Let's be real. It was bold for me to go to that product owner's boss and tell them the truth and stand up for what was right. Believe me, it was a risk to my job, but to me, it was worth the risk. And I had the data to back up my point of view. The product owner did not. You know, it can be bold and it can be lonely sometimes to advocate for underrepresented user groups in research findings, even when stakeholders may not initially see the value. This is especially true when we are creating experiences for folks who have accessibility concerns. Let's be real. Think of the last time you were in a digital whiteboard and maybe you said, hey, come over here, meet me all over here in the green stickies. Well, did you know the most common form of color blindness is when people struggle to distinguish between red and green items? Someone in your workshop might not be able to tell which stickies were actually the green ones. Okay, what about when you design a beautiful interface and there's not enough contrast between the text and the background. Maybe you use like this medium gray against a white background, or maybe you use a really small font size that could be challenging for older folks who have a vision deficiency. I hope this is not you. Being bold is about considering others who may not be like you. A lot of the apps and tech that we are using today are created in a Silicon Valley bubble. Do you think that these products are as diverse as they could be? I sure as hell don't. Do these products take in other worldviews or considerations that might not be offensive outside of Silicon Valley? Probably not. Maybe you've heard examples like these: facial recognition software that does not accurately identify people of color, or a voice virtual assistant that does not understand you because you're not speaking with a traditional American accent. Now, my husband has struggled with voice recognition because he has a British accent. And Alexa could not understand the things that he was saying. So, needless to say, we trashed that product. I could go on and on, but you get the idea. Speak up for those who are not represented in the room, especially if you're making decisions around a bunch of tech bros. So, here's another example: saying no to projects or features. Now, these things might not align with the user's needs or the goals of the user. Or, to be honest, the project might be a waste of time. I love this quote: if you're saying yes to this, what are you saying no to? This is a great quote by Michael Bungay Stanier. I think we should let that sink in for a little bit. Let me say it again. If you are saying yes to this, what are you saying no to? Pretty powerful stuff. If you're farting around, updating an app, like say to match the football colors of the local professional sports team instead of core functionality, what are you doing? Are you really doing the right thing? Are you really creating value for the user? Be bold and stand up for what really should be built, not what seems easy or looks cool. Why does being brave or bold even matter? Boldness pushes innovation and growth. By speaking up against the status quo, you are making things better. Better for your team, for your users, and maybe even for yourself. Being bold is one of the best ways to drive change. It shows courage and conviction, and these are essential traits for influencing others and creating meaningful impact. Are you sick of product owners ignoring your design or research recommendations? Take a stand against this. Be bold and remind them what the data shows, rather than what their hunch is or what they think should be done in their own opinion. What the data shows. To be bold shows that you have leadership potential. Maybe you want to be a leader of people someday. Maybe not. That's up to you. No matter where your career path goes, you are likely going to be leading from where you are. You're not going to surface as a leader by being mousy and shy in the corner. You've got to be bold once in a while. You simply got to stand up for what is right when the time is right. Time out, 1 second. Do you want some concrete suggestions on how you can be authentic and bold in your UX career? Remember to type "turning 50" in the chat to get my framework and my cheat sheet for free. Now let's talk about my next critical skill, which is being curious. Curiosity is the foundation of UX. Duh. It's about asking questions like why and what if. This really speaks to my desire to be a good researcher. But did you know that I started out as a designer? Yeah, back in the day, I was a print designer. And then I transitioned into a visual designer and a UX designer. And then eventually, here I am as a UX researcher. So at one point, I was working for a company that owns a bunch of animal hospitals. And I was designing their internal software for things like medical records and scheduling and that sort of thing. Let me tell you, going into animal hospitals and hanging out with cats and dogs all day, that was pretty fun research. But what made it so fun was not actually designing the software. That was kind of dated, to be honest. The fun part was the research. After observing doctors in the exam room with cats and dogs and seeing how they interacted with the software, that is what really got me excited about learning more about behavior and goals and tasks. I was almost more curious about how things were done. Let's talk a little bit more about curiosity when it comes to working on products and features. Like I said, curiosity seems like an easy one for UX folks, right? Kind of should be a gimme. As UX folks, of course we are curious. But are you though? Do you really understand your user well enough to design the ideal solution for them? Do you always do things like a competitive analysis to see what trends are going on out there? Do you have stakeholder interviews to get to know your team and to understand what's really important to them? Do you really ask why when a product owner suggests some features or that things should go in a certain direction? I just want you to think about, are you really acting curious? Are you really asking questions? As UX folks, we are curious and we want to understand context. How are people using our thing? It might not be what you expect. Be curious about the context in which users interact with the product. For example, are they on their mobile phone doing it, or are they on a computer desktop? Are they inside the house or are they outside? Is it light? Is it dark? What is their environment like? These are very different scenarios that can affect how a person uses your thing. Also, think about how people from different cultural backgrounds or different worldviews than the Silicon Valley bros interpret the information you are sharing. How might people of different cultural backgrounds or different worldviews interpret the information you are sharing? Are you using any offensive words? I'm not talking about F-bombs. I'm just saying words you think are innocent but might be offensive to somebody else. Are you using color that means a different thing across different cultures? Have you done research to make sure you understand these different kinds of contexts? And this curiosity helps you create more intuitive and adaptable experiences that meet the diverse needs of your users. Now, I'll switch gears a little bit and talk about how I love me a competitive analysis. Even though I'm not really designing interfaces anymore, I am still very curious about what other companies are doing to solve for similar challenges. For those who may not be familiar, a competitive analysis is basically investigating competitors' products and services with curiosity. And you're doing so to understand what are those strengths and weaknesses. I think that this process can help identify gaps in the market and inspire creative solutions to influence your product. No. Now, I'm not saying go off and copy the competitor. No, I am not saying that. You do a competitive analysis to broaden your perspective and maybe experiment with what the competitor is trying out. Explore how users might interact with various design patterns and identify opportunities for improvement. Obviously, I think research is a great place to talk about curiosity. It's our whole job to be curious. Don't you just love digging deeper into the root causes of things like pain points rather than settling for surface level answers? Probing questions and getting to the why is the real goal of user interviews. But you know what? Interviews are not the only tool us researchers have in our toolkit. Hopefully, you have a bundle of research skills. Experimenting with new tools and methodologies, like even a mixed method approach, is really cool for a complex project. And it can be really beneficial in telling your research story. So let me walk you through a quick example where I use both qualitative and quantitative research to gather data to tell a research story. So this research was for an internal product used by company employees. There were some assumptions of how employees were using this feature, and therefore the product owner wanted to create a specific design to lead users down a specific path. But I had some skepticism as to whether that was really the best path for users. So I decided to use a mixed method research approach. What is this mixed method thing that I keep talking about? Well, it's when you conduct both quantitative and qualitative research. And these two approaches can really complement each other very well. The quant tells you the what, and the qual tells you the why. So first, I started with qualitative interviews. I did this to understand how they used the tool, what the use cases were, how they needed the information to be surfaced, and why did they need it in that way. Along with that, I started to understand what these users actually call these things. And this led to my second half of the mixed method research, a quantitative survey. I did a survey to help identify words that users associated with labels in the interface. And I did this to help determine the best labels for our navigation. Conducting qualitative interviews with users first, it kind of worked in this scenario because it helped me get a lot of data that actually squashed the team's assumptions. I'll get into assumptions here in a little bit. But it also helped me to get some preliminary interface labels so that I could quantify those in a survey. The bottom line here is don't just fall back on the same old research method that you always use. Shake it up a little bit and try something new. Be curious about research methods, not just the data that you collect. Now let's talk about being curious as a professional. Have you ever worked with someone who thinks that they are the user and therefore there's no need to do research? Oh, I sure have. I have a whole video on what to say to people who claim to be the user. So you can go over to BlatzChatz and check that out after this video. One way that this mindset manifests is that people share their assumptions as facts. Ooh, I've seen this so many times. Being curious enables you to identify and question assumptions. As a UX pro, you should question assumptions about users, business goals, decisions. For example, here are some questions that you should be curious about. What if our users want something different than what we think they do? Or what haven't we considered yet? Conduct that gut check research when your team is relying on assumptions. I have a framework called the Scenario Alignment Canvas, or the SAC, where I surface the team's assumptions as we are workshopping through user needs. You can check out that video after this one too, the Scenario Alignment Canvas one. So, thinking about curiosity. Have you ever tried the 6 thinking hats exercise? Basically, you're asking your team to review your product or feature through different lenses. And these are the different hats. Each hat has a different color, which represents a different perspective. For example, the yellow hat is the positive hat and the optimistic lens. So when you're wearing the yellow hat, you should review things through a positive lens. The black hat is the opposite. This is where you view a feature or experience through a negative lens. So when you're wearing a black hat, you ask questions like, what could go wrong? How might this be confusing or harmful? Why might this not work? The point of this exercise is to surface risks and problems. And this is why you need to be curious about your team's assumptions. They mean well, but they could be wrong. So you want to keep an eye out for that. And going through this black hat exercise can be helpful to identify some of those assumptions. Let's also be curious about our workplace. We should do our best to understand the bigger picture. We should not be designing or conducting research in a bubble. I want you to think about these kinds of questions. What problem are we trying to solve? How does this benefit the business? How does our business actually make money and pay my paycheck? I want you to take some time to understand the broader context of your organization's goals and priorities, not just the little feature that you're working on. You should also check out the industry and market trends. By staying informed by the company's vision and goals and things like that, and also shifts in the market, you can align your efforts to long-term objectives. I have a secret pro tip for you. If you really want to make an impact at your company and look super smart, do more research to inform larger initiatives like business goals and major products being discussed. And maybe do a little less research on smaller initiatives or features like, can the user complete my little happy path and get all the way to the end of my clickable prototype? You've been there. When you show the company that you can get ahead of major initiatives and provide data to inform decisions, that is when you get a seat at the table. And that is when you will be brought into the process earlier. And that is when you will be considered an expert or thought leader or partner in this process. It's okay to start smaller, but you gotta think big. You can ask questions like, how does my work ladder up to the organization's major goals for this year? Or how does this decision impact other teams in the company? Thinking about an omni-channel experience, right? What's the long-term vision for this product? What differentiates this idea from what other companies are doing right now? Thinking more broadly than a feature can help you understand the wider implications of your work. The next curiosity approach I want you to start doing now is networking. I know networking sucks. People hate to network. It's awkward. You might be an introvert and maybe you're a little nervous about approaching strangers. And the thought of talking to strangers is pretty tough. But I want you to think of the benefits and frame it in a curiosity mindset. Networking and meeting others is very important to your professional growth. And connecting with UX pros from different fields or backgrounds can help you learn about their experiences and their perspectives. A curious professional often seeks out not only information, but relationships to expand their network and their knowledge base. Here is something for my stat-loving friends. Did you know that people find a job through their network 60 to 85% of the time, depending on the source of the statistic? 60 to 85% of the time. I, myself, have taken 3 jobs based on referrals from my network, people I knew. 3 jobs. You never know when you might need somebody in your network. So you need to start making those connections now. You can join a professional organization, online communities like UX Research and Strategy, or discussion groups in Slack. Other platforms have conversations about new developments or UX. You can also hop on LinkedIn and start having some conversations with folks. I can recall when I was transitioning into UX, I went to a lot of in-person meetups to connect with other people. I met people who were also trying to break in, but I also met people who had already been in UX for quite some time. And woo, did I learn a lot. By stepping out of my comfort zone and getting curious, I was asking them questions about UX, and I learned a ton. And you know what? I still have many of these folks as friends and peer mentors to this day. I want to wrap up curiosity with just 3 letters, ABL, which stands for always be learning. Even at my ripe old age of 50, I am still learning something new every day. Take the initiative to learn new tools, new software, even methods that can enhance your skills and improve your performance. For example, a UX designer might learn a coding language to better collaborate with developers. Or you figure out how AI tools can help you in productivity and streamlining your work. Personally, I'm not a big fan of using AI to do research synthesis right now for me, but hey, that doesn't mean I won't keep an eye out and see how the technology improves and how it gets better and smarter. So let me ask you, when was the last time that you read an article or watched a webinar or went to a conference? Let me go back to networking for a second. When was the last time that you went back to someone to pick their brain about something that was challenging you? One thing I know for certain, I sure as hell do not know all the things. Even at 50, I still have a lot to learn. And I will continue to learn probably until the day I die. And you should too. So why in the hell does being curious matter? Curiosity keeps you engaged, adaptable, and forward thinking. It ensures that you are not just solving today's problems, but anticipating tomorrow's challenges. As a human, curiosity nurtures itself in lifelong learning and growth. Whew, we are moving right along here, folks. Remember, if you want a copy of my little cheat sheet, type turning 50 in the chat and I'll send that over your way. So let's talk about the letter D in the ABCDE framework. And D stands for dynamic. Being dynamic means staying flexible and thriving in a changing environment. It's a crucial skill in a fast-paced field like UX. And one thing I can say from my 50 years of living is that nothing stays the same. The design tools I have used changed. I started with PageMaker, then Quark and Photoshop and Sketch and Figma. See how much change just in the tools I've used. My job role has changed from visual design to research. My intent has changed. I used to be the kind of person who wanted to show that I was right and I knew all the things. But now I'm more excited about going out there and learning and getting answers for others. Being dynamic in your UX career means staying adaptable, open to change, and continually evolving to meet new challenges and opportunities. So here are some ways that you can be dynamic in your UX career. First, you got to stay updated on industry trends. Reading articles, attending conferences, participating in webinars, and keeping up with the latest UX methodologies and tools and experiences. It's important to stay on top of things. You can also explore new emerging fields like voice UI or augmented reality. Try to stay ahead of the curve to expand your skill set. Like I mentioned earlier, trying to see how AI can make you more productive or assist you in your job. Okay, but I do have a caveat about this. Don't just jump on board with every trendy little thing that you see. A lot of these are short-lived, and doing this is honestly quite exhausting. I'm telling you to be aware of them, not to do all of them. I am suggesting don't be a Luddite and the one who refuses to morph with the times. We all have to. No matter how much we hate change, it's the one thing that we cannot prevent. So be ready to learn new things, change your skills, and bounce back from a challenge at any moment. You may or may not know that I started out in graphic design, but I could see the forest for the trees, so to speak, and see where that industry was heading and the dying profession that print design was. So I had to learn new things. So you should try to expand your skill set across the UX spectrum. Now, I am a fan of being a UX generalist. We're not going to debate that today. And the way that the job market is going, some employers expect UX folks to do a lot of different things. You may not agree with this approach, but it's the reality. Having a broad understanding of other aspects of UX is essential. For instance, you might take a course on user research if you primarily focus on visual design. Or the flip of that, you might learn a little bit about visual design when you are primarily a researcher. I want to talk about getting a broad range of experience. Now, being dynamic in the work that you can do and the tasks that you can perform, that's going to help you in your career in the long run. So if you can, work on diverse projects. I love this little quote from Albert Einstein. Let me read it to you. Life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving. Think about that for a second. Life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving. In order to make progress in your career, you have to keep moving. I'm not saying that you have to jump to different companies, though sometimes there's benefits to that. I'm saying in order to grow in your career, you have to challenge yourself with new things. Be dynamic in what you are working on. Here's another great quote that I love. Stagnation breeds mediocrity. Growth fosters greatness. Let me say that again. Stagnation breeds mediocrity. Growth fosters greatness. That's some pretty good stuff right there. So I want you to challenge yourself by working on a variety of projects with different types of users and in different industries. For me, I've worked in a number of industries, from healthcare to journalism to fintech and security. Being exposed to these different industries has helped me be a more dynamic professional. Maybe you can explore a bunch of different industries or projects where you are right now. Don't let that stop you from being dynamic. You can pick up some freelance work or a side gig that forces you to adapt quickly so you can be ready for new challenges, technology stacks that are different, even team dynamics. I picked up this YouTube channel earlier this year. I had zero experience editing videos, let alone writing a script or recording videos. I had no experience. But by picking this up, I've learned a ton of new skills. I've knocked myself out of my comfort zone and made some new content creator friends along the way. I'll say trying YouTube has also significantly changed my point of view on like social media, personal brand importance, content creation. So let me ask you, how are you being dynamic and trying new things? Drop me a note in the chat. Okay, speaking of personal brand, this is another way that you can become more dynamic. Trust me, there's nothing more vulnerable and bold, see what I did there? Than putting yourself out there in public. And when you do, you're probably a little intentional about it. You think about the messages you are going to post and where you're going to post them. You think about what photos you're going to share or what projects you're going to share. This all feeds into your personal brand. You can build your personal brand by sharing your expertise and insights on social media platforms, or by writing articles, or by speaking at conferences. This helps you stay visible and establishes you as a thought leader in your field, all contributing to your personal brand. Personal brand is a huge topic, and I'm going to be creating some more content around that soon. So until then, I'm going to tease to a little interview I did with Megan Thomas, where she talked quite a bit about building your personal brand through content creation. I suggest you check that out after this video too. Okay, by being dynamic and keeping your eyes open for different opportunities, you can grow throughout your career. It's about being proactive, adaptable, and continuously striving for improvement, both in your skills and the ways that you approach your work. So, honestly, why does being dynamic even matter? change is going to happen. I have another quote for you, and it is change is the only constant in life. I think we know this. There's some truth right there. Change is the only constant in life. So we need to be dynamic and adaptable to all of those curveballs that life is going to throw at us. And through your life or career, you might not get that promotion you've been working so hard for, get laid off from the job that you love, not get that proper recognition on a project that you sunk your heart and soul into. And these things suck. A dynamic mindset makes you resilient and resourceful. Being dynamic is a skill valued in any profession, to be honest. And it's essential for navigating those ups and downs that life is going to be throwing at us. Finally, let's talk about the E in my top 5 skills you need to have right now: empathy. Empathy is the heart of UX and being a good human being. It's about understanding and connecting with others. I think the easy go to when it comes to empathy is through research and understanding our users. When we conduct in depth interviews, we go beyond those surface level questions. Our deep conversations invite users to share their experiences and their challenges and their emotions. When our users share these insights through interviews, we must learn to listen to their stories without judgment. We must focus on understanding their pain points, their motivations, their goals. Another way to understand our users is to observe them in context. We've talked about context already. We can watch users interact with our product in their natural environment. This helps you design experiences that are more relatable and real and relevant to them. When I was at that company that owns a bunch of animal hospitals, seeing how doctors really work and interact with the animals gave me a whole new outlook on how to design that software for them. Doctors don't have time or the hand to go from holding a pet down so it won't bite you or so it won't pee on you, taking those hands and going over to the computer to start typing in a medical record. That is really difficult. And if I had not seen this in person, I would not have understood this dynamic. So it was very helpful to see this myself. Let me ask you, when was the last time you got out of your chair and entered the user's world? I mean, really observe people using the thing in their natural environment. Let me tell you, you're going to learn some things beyond your wildest imagination. Another aspect of empathy in UX is advocating for the users and creating inclusive designs and experiences. We've talked a little bit about this. In meetings and discussions with stakeholders, we are the ones who need to advocate for the user's voice. We need to speak out for those who are not in the room. We need to ensure that user needs, especially marginalized groups or underserved groups, we need to make sure that their needs are considered when design decisions are made. We can be an empathy advocate within our team. Maybe you're the only UX person on a project and you're surrounded by business folks and engineers. We should remind our colleagues of the human side of the data and the numbers. And when it comes to inclusive design, we must make sure our products are accessible to all users. That means advocating for those with disabilities too. I talked about this already, but consider features like screen readers, color contrast, and alternative text to make sure everyone has equal access to what you're making. I want to talk about another angle for empathy, and that is in your professional relationships and in your career overall. Building empathy all through your career, it's essential. And it's important because you do it to build strong relationships, foster collaboration, and improve your overall impact. I think the biggest example of this is having empathy for our coworkers and our teammates. We don't always do this very well. I've been guilty of this too. Have you ever bashed your product owner or some executive for their silly idea? Come on, admit it. I have. And to be honest, that was kind of a jerk move. And here's why. And we don't usually understand the motivation behind someone's point of view. We jump to conclusion, let's face it, and it's usually a negative one. Things like this. These devs only care about technology. They don't care about people who use this stuff. That product owner has their own agenda, and that's what they're trying to promote. Why is that person so clueless? This is not an improvement of the experience at all. There is no way there's going to be a version 2 that makes this better. The owner of the company, all they care about is profit. Why does anyone but me really care about the user's experience? Have you ever had thoughts like this? Maybe you have thoughts like this today? I'm guessing you have. But we need to pause, take a step, and not jump to conclusions. And when it comes to empathy with our team, there are a few tactics you can take to be a better coworker. First, we want to build strong relationships through trust. And how do we do this? We go back to my A and the ABCDE, which is authentic. Yikes. Be genuine and transparent. You can cultivate trust by being honest and authentic in your communication. Share your thoughts and feelings openly while also respecting other people's opinions. Another way to build trust is to follow through on promises and commitment. Also, offer to help when needed. Being someone others can count on creates the foundation of trust, fosters empathy in your relationships. So, remember how I just said don't jump to conclusions? Well, one way not to do that is to seek understanding. If a project is not going to plan, take the time to understand why. Show empathy by acknowledging there could be some challenges and some frustrations. And then collaborate to work on solutions instead of jumping to conclusions or rushing to put blame on somebody. When we ask for clarity, we need to listen with our full attention. Get those assumptions out of your head. When teammates, clients, or users speak, we need to make that effort to listen to them. And you do this by showing that you're listening through body language, making eye contact, all these kind of things that you already probably know about. So make an effort to understand not just your team, but people of different cultural backgrounds. I've talked a little bit about this, right? Different ages and professional backgrounds and personal backgrounds. I mean, it helps you get a broader view of the world and it enhances your ability to empathize with a variety of perspectives. And finally, I want to wrap up empathy by making it about you. Self-reflect and review your behaviors and reactions. Set some time for self-reflection. Take some time to think about and write about your interactions and your relationships at work. Are you showing empathy? Did you react in the best way that you could? What could you have done differently? You can start journaling to be more reflective and capturing your thoughts when you're out of the heat of the moment. This can increase your emotional intelligence and help you to manage your reactions. Being aware and journaling can also help you respond in a more thoughtful and empathetic way. I really love this idea of self-reflection. I have a journal here. I have it here. Here's my reflection journal. See it? And I'm flipping through it. I did not do a good job writing last year, but I looking through my reflection journal and seeing some things from like 2022 and 2021. I'm talking about things like, should I be a leader or not? Or I got rejected for a job, and how do you manage my personal and professional life? Ooh, another one here. Imposter syndrome. That's a big one. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that one later. So imposter syndrome is another one. And the funny thing is, even though these are from a year or two ago, they still are very relevant. Woo! Crazy. So if you're interested in me talking about any of these things in my reflection journal, leave me a comment and maybe I'll talk about some of these subjects. Being empathetic professionally not only enhances your relationships and teamwork, but it also fosters a positive, productive work environment where people need to feel understood and supported. Okay, so why should we be empathetic? Empathy drives meaningful experiences and it drives collaboration. You can't work with others when you don't get along with them. I guess you can, but it's really tough, right? So, building those relationships and that empathy with them helps you build things together. It reminds us that behind every product, there are real people with real needs. And as a person, empathy deepens those relationships and strengthens our communities. There you have it, the top 5 skills that you, as a UX pro, need to have coming from this person turning 50 this year. Those top 5 skills are authentic, bold, curious, dynamic, and empathetic. These are not just skills for user experience. Think of them as principles for living a fulfilling and impactful life. I could go on with even more skills. F is for Figma. Just kidding. I'm not going to do that. That's a tool, that's not a skill. But I think navigating soft skills is much more important for long term success. I think those top 5 skills that we went through today, authentic, bold, curious, dynamic, and empathetic, are really where you must start to focus now. Okay, one final reminder, I want you to grab that cheat sheet that I've been talking about, how you can start flexing these skills now. Just type turning 50 into a comment and I will pop that over in your direction. And as I jump into a new decade, I'm taking a moment to reflect on what I've learned and share that with you. I've made a lot of assumptions and mistakes through the years. Woohoo! We don't have that kind of time to go through all the mistakes that I have made. I wish I had these critical skills on my radar much earlier in life. But hey, my experience contributes to your success. Think about how you can apply these 5 critical skills to your UX career and to your life moving forward. Let me know in the comments if any of these skills resonate with you. Here is to designing better experiences and better careers. See you next time. Bye.